no, I don't think I can because I don't know anything about land, but I'll try. I tried and found a buyer within 7 days. We closed 7 days later. I was like, whoa.
Today, I have Teddy Benz with me, who's based in Greenville, South Carolina. And this is Purpose-Driven Investment Podcast, where we talk strategy, learn from each other, and create return that matter. So, Teddy, how are you today?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you come on my podcast. I remember last time when I first met you, where you have a really awesome looking cowboy hat. You just have this great energy. I can tell you're shy, but you have so much knowledge. So I think it would be great to talk about what you do. This is such a unique investment strategy. I think a lot of people didn't really know too much about it. Most people, when you talk about investing in real estate, they're just talking about buying houses, flipping houses, and you don't do none of that, right? You don't do any houses. Give us a little 1-minute intro, how you started with your investment journey to land you where you are today.
Writing code, working with computers, etc. But I did not like the 9 to 5, stuck in a cubicle, doing work that other people were telling me to do type of thing. I like just, tinkering around and playing in my own right. So definitely knew that I wanted to get out of that cubicle.
I think a lot of us decide to do real estate investing on the side. We all have that, I would say, like a wild side of us. Like we don't like to be confined into a certain space. It's almost like we have a different set of creativity going on that's telling you, hey, this is not it. Like you need to do something more fun.
I did end up going full-time into real estate, learned about Pace Morby, a sub-2 community, creative finance. And that's how I got my feet wet, was doing creative real estate. I was never really good at the cash house side because there's a lot of emotion with houses and I'm not the most confrontational or like negotiation type person. So when it comes to like, oh, we're arguing over a cash price, I feel like if I win, then they're losing and just too much conflict for me. So I like the more creative approach where it's like, hey, let's do sub-2 or seller financing, something that helps you to either get out of your pain or to gain. And coming with that approach worked a lot better for me. So I had more success. But then I did move from Buffalo down to Greenville, South Carolina, because I was like, well, I'm not tied to any specific location now that I'm doing real estate full time. So why am I staying in cold, gray, half the year Buffalo? And a side note, I do really appreciate growing up in Buffalo. It is a great place. There's lots of great people there, but living there for 25 years, wears you down a little bit, the snow and cold. So I was like, hey, let's do something new. Worst case, I hate wherever I end up and I can always move back, because that's the big thing with real estate and entrepreneurship for me, is that it doesn't make my life any easier. In fact, I work more than I ever have before, but I have the freedom to do the things that I want
Right.
to do.
You
And so I end up moving to Greenville, still doing houses, and then stumbled into my first land deal, which was only natural because there is so much land and opportunity. There's undeveloped acreage here that it was like inevitable that I would stumble into something. And it went so much differently than a house for me. It was a friend who lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. He generated this lead and was asking if I could help him to sell it to someone, because he knew that I lived nearby to where this property was in Spartanburg. Greenville and Spartanburg are right near each other. And I was like, no, I don't think I can because I don't know anything about land, but I'll try. I at least know people here, which is an advantage. So I tried and found a buyer within 7 days. We closed 7 days later. I was like, whoa, that
That
disposition
was easy,
process.
huh? Hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah, so much
I'm gonna
easier than a house.
I'm gonna unpack a little bit. So you know nothing about the land, but this deal came to you and you found the buyer in 7 days. How did you find the buyer?
I posted in a Facebook group that I was part of, just a local Facebook group that I had ended up joining because a friend had told me, like, when I moved to Greenville, like, hey, you should join this group. There's some people doing local real estate, so join it. So I was just part of it for a while and posted in there. I've got some land, and I had a bunch of people interested. What was nice compared to a house is I could just say, go out there, look at it, tell me
Right.
what
It's
you
a
think.
dirt. There's
Yeah, I didn't
nothing to
have to
check.
worry
No.
about if there were tenants in the property, getting access to it, if maybe the seller, wasn't totally upfront about something, like some condition that a buyer was going to discover when they visited it. It was like, it's land, go look at it. So it was so much simpler.
That's so interesting. So you basically just post on Facebook. I imagine it's like a Facebook group, some sort of like land for sale or for sale by owners, similar
Yeah, it's
or
just like local
local real estate
Greenville
group.
real estate group,
Yeah.
and just said, "Hey, I've got 18 acres available in Spartanburg. Anyone interested?" And
Did
sure
you
enough, there were a
price it
lot.
when you post the thing? You would just say, "I have this available. You're interested looking." Did you price it?
Yeah,
That's usually the mystery to me because, like, houses, it's so easy to find comp, but I'm
mhm.
always trying to understand, is there any formula or algorithm or whatever to determine the land value?
Yeah, comping land, especially if you've never looked at it before, is not the easiest thing. I'll be, the first to
Yes.
admit that. There's a lot of nuance to it, and there can be many things that impact it. It oftentimes just comes down to a little bit of a feel or educated guess about what someone might be willing to pay. And there are certain rules of thumb you can follow that can get you into the right point. But what's nice with land, generally compared to houses, is that if you do find some relatively similar properties that maybe aren't the same size, you can use a price per acre formula. You can take that price per acre of that sold comp and just map it on to your subject property. Whereas with a house, doing like a price per square foot is not the best approach. You want to find something that's exactly 3 beds, 2 bath, close to
Right,
that
have to be a like
1,500 square
kind.
feet. You can't comp a 2,000 square foot house with a 1,500 square foot house. Usually, you want to find something in that 14 to 1,600 range. Whereas with land, you could say, "Hey, I've got 20 acres available. This is what I'm going to be selling. And I found a property that's 30 acres. 10 acres is a relatively big difference, but that 30 acres isn't going to sell for that much less price per acre than a 20-acre parcel. So I can maybe deduct a little bit or maybe increase a little bit price per acre and then just multiply that by the 20. And that should give me roughly what the land is worth."
Ah, I see. So you're looking at the sold land still, right? Like just like we're trying to find a comp for the house, you're trying to find the like kind house that's sold on the market. You're doing the same thing with the land that was sold in the market, but with a little more bigger margin. Like, cause the land, I imagine, like you're trying to find the comp for 20 acre. You may not find the comp for 20 acre, but you might find something that's like 30 acre or 10 acre, and you kind of average it out to find the unit price for that. Is that the right
Exactly, yeah. So
interpretation?
you have a certain decision tree, to follow. It's like, hey, if I can
Right.
find the exact 20 acres in the same
Same
subdivision or the
neighborhood,
same
yeah.
area, like same road, everything, then perfect. That's my
Yes.
comparable. But the chances you find that with land aren't
Very
that
small.
high because, well, first of all, not as many vacant land lots exist as houses that have sold recently. People tend to hold land for quite a while.
Long
And so
time, yes. It's
you look at the
also
market data and
right.
it's very sparse. So you might like find, oh, like a 20-acre parcel. I found another like 21-acre parcel, but chances are unlikely. So you kind of want to be intelligent in, trying to like corner yourself with similar-ish, but not likely perfect comp. So exactly like you said, if you can find a 10 and a 30, well, the 10 probably sold for a greater price per acre than the 30 because you get a nice discount on land as you
Right.
get larger and larger lots. As long as you're somewhere in between that 10 and 30-acre parcel, you're probably on the right track.
That's also a very important point. It's like buying things in bulk, right? You get a discount. Like when you're trying to get a
Yep.
bigger bag of chip in Costco, it's gonna be cheaper per ounce versus the one you get it from a small bag of like travel size one. Would you say that's how you make majority of the spread? Are you buying something bigger and chopping it down to the smaller sizable lot to sell?
Yeah, exactly. You definitely get a deal for being able to purchase something at a greater price, right? Most people can't pay $1 million for a property, but they could pay 100,000. And so there's fewer buyers. You kind of have to, as a seller, be willing to let it go at a lower price per acre than what like a smaller lot would go for because there's more buyers for that. And
Right.
so my strategy currently, the little niche that I've found myself in is called a simple subdivision. So I look for properties that are generally 20 plus acres because it makes the math the most workable, but not a hard and fast rule, but
Right.
20 acres. And I can subdivide it down into smaller lots. And just using that exact logic, that Costco bulk logic, I can go and take that 20 acres at X price per acre, chop it up into 4 or 5 acre parcels that sell for 3x price,
Right.
dollars per acre. And that's how you create that spread. My value add is that I can purchase that larger parcel at a greater price, and I can do the work to one, know like how to do soil tests and get a surveyor out there and properly subdivide things according to county or state rules, and then provide it as a nice buildable lot for an end buyer to typically build their primary residence.
I see. Well, we're gonna talk about how you find those leads. Of course, that's where people, if they want to start in their market, I want to start with, why did you pick South Carolina? And I've noticed that a lot of land investors going to certain states. Is there a particular reason that make you decide, what, this is a good market that I can do it? Because I assume not every state are having the more friendly zoning law. Because that's the only thing I know about zoning is play a big role how you can decide what to do with the land, right? So why did you decide to pick on South Carolina to do this?
Yeah, the simple answer is I live here. I live in Greenville and I did my first deal here. And so decided I don't know anything about land. I'll market to land that's local to me because at least I know what is near me. So that'll help. And then as I started learning more about how to actually analyze land, see which markets are better than others, I started, running numbers and looking at the data and was like, oh, perfect. I'm already doing it in South Carolina where like the numbers are pointing. And so there's a big thing is just how much demand there is. And a simple way to look at that is how many parcels have been listed in the past 6 to 12 months, how many have sold in the past 6 to 12 months, and basically doing what's called a sell-through rate. And the more parcels that have sold compared to listed, the more demand you can expect there will be. So if
Right.
you get a property under contract in that county, I usually break it down by county when I'm doing my analysis. The more demand there is, the more buyers there are, and the more likely it is you'll sell it at a price that will work for you. And so all things pointed to the Carolinas, and I was already doing stuff in South
Right.
Carolina. And since then, I have expanded into marketing in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia because the numbers look really good there. And the common thing that they have is they're nice, southern, warm states where
Right. Almost like
there
four
is a lot of
season.
land available and people want to live there for the weather. They like the
Right.
laws. Yeah, it just kind of already lived in the area that the numbers pointed to.
Right. The Carolinas, the North and the South Carolina seem to be the states that people enjoy moving over there for retirement because of the nicer, warmer weather. You don't deal with the hurricanes much compared to Florida. So I have some friends who they retire and they move down to Florida. They all love it. I can see why this will become a hot spot. How do you market to these potential sellers? How do you usually lead farming your source to find lead to purchase?
So all of my marketing currently is direct to seller outbound, all cold. I'm not doing any SEO or PPC campaigns or any of those, more inbound types. I'm sending very high volume, but low success rate or conversion rate type generation, which text messaging, cold calling, ringless voicemail, even email, they're very inexpensive to do. They bring in a lot of leads, but they're not always the best leads. A lot of times it's just like, I'll sell it for $1 million. It's like, well, I guess
All
that's
right.
like,
You
okay.
have the salad that want the sun and the moon and everything,
Yep.
unicorn. Yeah.
Exactly. In the land space, kind of the gold standard, I know it's not used as frequently in residential, is direct mail. And there's a couple reasons I think it does do so well with land. The biggest is the type of people that I and many other land investors target are those who have owned land for a while. They've just been sitting on it, they haven't done anything with it, and they bought it for dirt cheap, forgive the pun, but they bought it super cheap maybe 10, 15 years ago. It's appreciated clearly and they are willing to sell it for 50 to 70% of what it's currently worth today. And the reason being is like, well, they're still making a huge profit on what they initially bought it for, and they don't want to go through the hassle of listing it on market and
Right.
agents and that. And if they can just do a quick cash sale, they're happy to let it go. It's like, well, I haven't done anything with it at this point, so I will
Right.
let it go.
Because they
And
bought it so cheap, they're making a huge spread anyway.
yep.
Yeah.
And generally, those people are older because if you're older, you've had more time to have even, been in real estate or bought that. So the direct mail just lands better with them than those more digital marketing strategies. I think,
Alright, those
well,
people
one,
usually don't use phone either because 'cause they're an older
yeah,
population, they
you
have
know,
email, they open the mail.
yeah, a lot of the sellers I deal with don't even text, like, they don't have cell phones, we just reach out to them via landline still, and so, will they answer a phone call from just a random phone number? Probably not that likely. So, the cold call's not getting through to them, we can't even text them. If we can text them, they probably get hit up by a bunch of people through text, and they just
Right.
think it's
It's
spam, they don't
just
wanna deal with
spam.
it. Whereas the
Mhm.
direct mail, they'll actually open it, they might open it and just throw it away, but at least they've opened it and seen it, and for those that are motivated to sell, it's a little bit more official and serious because
Correct.
I do what's called blind offers, where I actually, price out an entire county and, kind of chop it up based on environmental landmarks like a river or more government areas like towns or counties, and just figure out what are things generally selling for price per acre, map that onto the parcel that I'm sending the mail for, and come up with a rough value, which is, 50-50 accurate, and then send a lower offer. So I actually include an offer on a contract that they could sign and send back to me. And so it's much more official and it looks like, oh, this person has put some thought into
Some
it. They
thought
may have put
into
very,
it. It's like, if
very
I decide
terrible
I
thought
can
into the offer,
yeah,
but at least they put some thought into it. And so they
right.
take it a little more seriously.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because I heard some funny other investor who's doing similar style mailing as well. You'd be surprised a lot of people they got the mail, they open it, they never call you, but they put your letter on their fridge. And they're, I'm thinking about selling, I'm just not ready yet. And then in a year or two later, you got a phone call, say, wait, what was this about? Oh, the letter I sent like more than a year ago. Now they're ready, and then they give you a
Yeah.
call. Have you ever
Yeah.
gotten that kind of response?
I got one lady, it wasn't quite a year, but it was about 7 or 8 months after she would have received that letter that she called. It didn't work out because it turned out that it was an interesting estate situation with some kind of federal liens on it, where it was being forced to an auction, and like you
Yes,
had to buy this, 100-acre property for a crazy amount in like 30 days. And I was like, that is not the kind of property
it
I'm
didn't
looking to
work.
buy. Like,
Yeah,
I'd be interested in it, but there's a lot of due diligence that goes into making sure that you can actually buy something of that scale. So we
right.
had to pass on it. But yeah, someone did call 7 months later after
See,
receiving it.
that works. They
Yeah.
save your letter.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wanted to understand your thinking a little bit. I understand that you cold call may not work as good, and then you don't do door now because sometimes these owner there's really no benefit of doing that. And it sounds like you actually have to reach out to them. It's outboundly. You have to reach out to them, and before you decide who to reach out to, I'm sure there's a thinking or some sort of logic behind when you decide. You know what, this plot of land is better versus the other one because the state is a huge piece, right? Can you kind of walk us through a couple of thinking point that you will make you decide, you know what, that's worth farming for. This one is not so much. Like, what are the initial filter that you use?
You don't get motivations quite the same as houses. You're typically not pulling a pre-foreclosure list or, a tax lien list. Maybe you would, but taxes are generally so low on land that it's like, well, they can just pay it off easily. Like they're not like in a hole holding it. And most people don't have debt on land. And so the biggest thing for me is, I guess, time and circumstance. So when did they acquire it? And how did they acquire it? So I don't market to business entities at all, LLCs or corporations, because if someone's buying land in one of those structures, they're probably pretty savvy and
Yes, they're
holding on to it as an
sophisticated.
investment or planning to develop it themselves. And so they're probably thinking in the same way I am, where it's like, well, whatever I'm going to do, they would just do it themselves if they wanted to. And so they're,
Right.
they're probably going to sell it for it to make sense to them. And it's different from houses because like lots of people get into real estate and they put it into an LLC because that's what they've been told to do, to protect themselves. And then they become a tired landlord very quickly and they're ready to sell. But with land, if someone's buying it in an LLC, they're probably pretty savvy in my experience. And so only market to individuals or trusts, because trusts for estate planning and that kind of thing is very common. And then when they bought the property. So if they bought it in the past year, I'm not marketing to them because they probably paid pretty close to market value and they're not going to be able to let it go for a price that makes sense to me. And so not worth the time right now. Maybe they'll be ready to sell it in 2 or 3 years. So not time to market today. Now, if they've bought it a year plus, I will put in certain filters. If they bought it 5 years ago or longer, I'll just market to them regardless. Like, I don't really care how they acquired it, what they bought it for, or anything. I'll market to them because they've owned it for a while, and there's only so much land out there. There's never more made. So it's like, let's get them in the funnel and start marketing to them. And most of those people that they're not ready to sell or to sell at a price that makes sense, but they're worth at least, building that rapport with and keeping tabs on.
Yeah, keeping
So
them in
in
the
that
loop. Yeah.
1 to 5 year range is where I put a little bit of thought into who am I marketing to. And so I will filter based on what they bought it for. If they bought it for a good bit less than what I expect the properties in that area to be worth, I'll keep it. If they're over a certain age, I will market to them. So my threshold is generally 60 years, because at that point, someone's probably starting to think about retiring. And so even though they bought the land relatively recently, there's a good chance that maybe they had development plans or something, but they're like, I'm just getting to that age where I don't want to deal with it. I'll sell it. And then the one that I'll just market to always, regardless of when the property was acquired or anything, is estate type situations where there's probate, the property was left to a child or something like that. I didn't even know my dad owned
Yeah,
this
my dad
land
left me this. I don't know what
in
to do with it.
rural South Carolina. I live in Colorado. It's like, yeah, I'll sell it. So that's a really good person to target, because they don't want to deal with this property so far away that they know nothing
Right.
about. Who knows if an
Especially out of
agent's going to do
state.
them right or anything. So I was like, hey, if someone's willing to give me some money right now, like in the next 30, 60 days, yeah, sure, let's go for it.
Right. Especially for out of state inheritance. The kids are just not in that state. Like you said, they don't really know too much about it. They probably don't want to keep it. That's a great opportunity for you to reach out to them. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. So other than ownership though, is there any other filter that you consider that is certain landmark? You mentioned about landmark, right? Or certain terrain. Do you look at like a path of progression like we usually do with real estate? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Other than the ownership type of filter that you're thinking out about how it would sit on by the river, nearby the mountain. Is there any additional thinking?
After the person themselves is actually the features of the land. And so I used to just market blanket, just give me any size lot. I'm happy to talk to any seller. And that was back when I was more in wholesaling mindset. I still wholesale, but typically only in upstate South Carolina, where I have the most, known builder buyers, and I can just, dispo that to them pretty quickly. But now that I'm transitioning towards larger parcels, anywhere outside of upstate South Carolina, I'm pulling lists of 10 plus acres. Anything less than that, yes, I could do something with, but I don't know if there's going to be enough profit potential for it to make sense for me to try to build those new buyer relationships in a new market and have to kind of learn things. Whereas once I start getting 10, 20 plus acres, the spreads become much bigger. And I haven't hit this huge grand slam of a deal that I want to yet, but they're out there. So I've done a few of these simple subdivides that were moderately successful, but there are people who have been able to find properties that are making a $600,000 purchase a profit of about $600,000, because they're able to push so
Whoa.
much value in subdividing
Right.
it. I'm still looking for that one myself. Yeah, pretty much as long as it is of that size, so 10, more realistically 20 plus acres, and it's got good road frontage, then I'm happy to market to it, with a little caveat that I do filter out properties that have excessive floodplain. So anything more than like 40% of the property has floodplain, where it'd be not impossible to build on, but not desirable and very expensive and probably not worth it. I'll get rid of those. But as long as there's not a massive amount of floodplain and it's got good road frontage, I market to it. And so I use a software that two brothers, land investors, develop, where they actually use AI to pretty accurately figure out, if a property is one, landlocked, meaning that it doesn't even have road access, and if it's not landlocked, how much road frontage does it have? Because in my strategy, I'm not looking to put in new roads or new utilities or anything like that.
Right.
I
That
just want
costs
to
a
use
lot of
existing
money.
road frontage and chop up the lot,
Right.
and people can access their newly created lots on the existing road.
Right. Yeah, that's the key, especially when you're just first starting. I assume if you want to lay the brand new road, that's going to cost so much money. Not to mention you want to tap into the public utility, because there's no utility. The price difference will be so drastically different. I went through this, so I know the pain, because I'm trying to build a second home in the middle of nowhere. We love mountain. The cost of laying the conduit through the closest transformer, it depends on when you buy the material, right? During COVID,
Mhm.
that's when that happened. It cost so much money to bury the conduit, even just to to tap into the electricity. And then there's no water, so we have to do what we call rainwater collection. So then because of that, I think that's why the land in that area, it doesn't sell as a premium because you don't have public utility access. So you focus only the land that's not landlocked, first of all, right? So it has a public road connect to it. So you can basically chop, everybody has access to the front road. Everything's drivable. Right? They can drive onto the lot and check on it. When you work with a land surveyor, how do you decide how to chop it? I assume there's some zoning that comes into the place and minimum that you have to do and the maximum you have to do, right? Setback and everything.
Yeah, so there are a handful of variables to consider. The first one is just what are you even allowed to do? Just because you want to chop it into quarter acre parcels doesn't mean that you're allowed to. And so every county will have what's called a Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO for short, and that will lay out everything you're allowed to do. It include zoning rules, different building requirements, subdivision requirements, which is the most applicable thing here. And sometimes that is also not just at the county level, but at a certain municipality level. So like a city or town level, they might have their own rules that lay on top of it. So being
Right,
able to
like an
find those
overlay.
and understand them, is a big important part. So that's the first thing, is what can I even do? And then is it justified to do what I want to do? So just because you're allowed to do quarter acre parcels doesn't mean that you should. If you're doing this in rural, wherever, I mean, anywhere that's rural, you could get quarter acre parcels, but who's buying them?
In the
You know?
quarter size. Yeah.
Yep,
Who's your
exactly.
buyer? Who's your buyer's clientele, the buying pool?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if like you're really close to a city and you've got all public utilities, it's premium area, you probably do want to do quarter acre parcels, get it as dense as possible so that you can sell it to a big builder and make a big paycheck. But there aren't that many of those opportunities out there. And there's a lot of work that goes into them besides that. Just like you said, running those public utilities through the newly created subdivision, it's a lot of due diligence, a lot of money up front, a lot of money to actually execute once you've done the due diligence. And so sure, you could do it, but do you want to? Maybe there are people who have great businesses like that, but it would drive me crazy. So I like the simple stuff. From there, it's like, yes, I have some demand for these parcels of whatever size I can create. Well, does the price per acre that these smaller parcels will sell for, do they justify dividing into that many parcels? Suppose that we could divide it into any parcel into, say it's 50 acres. We'll divide it into 5 10-acre parcels or 10 5-acre parcels. Which one should you choose? Well,
Right.
I don't know. It depends on what
Who's
the
buying? Yeah.
comparables or what the demand is in the area. If people are paying 2 times more price per acre for the 5-acre parcels than they are for the 10-acre parcels, then do the 5-acre parcels all day. Yes, it's going to take you a little bit longer usually to sell off 10 lots as opposed to 5 lots, but the profit is so much bigger that it makes a lot of sense. But the 5-acre parcels are selling for, 1.25 compared to the 10-acre parcels. Like, well, I can give up a little bit of profit to get rid of the headache of having to sell 5 more lots. And so that's kind of like the
Right.
last part in the decision tree is like, well, yes, I can do these. And yes, there's demand, but realistically, what's going to be like my best bang for the buck? You could
Right.
have the thought process, well, I just want to make the most money possible, but I also value just simplicity and,
Time. Yeah.
time and,
Time versus effort. Yeah, that's
yep,
the key. And also, even though
exactly.
if you decide to chop it smaller, you can always sell it as a package deal. It's
Yep.
already ready. It's just signing over 2 lots, 3 lots, 4 lots versus just 1, right?
Yeah, I
So
haven't done it. I usually sell to individuals who want to build a house, what I would call an estate lot, get a bit more land a little further out from the city because they value that privacy in that land. So they're willing to make their commute. But I could sell those lots as a package to a builder. I just haven't at this point. It's an option. I would sell them probably for less, but I would sell them much quicker.
right. Well, I was about to ask you, like, how does it look like working with the builder? But I'm going to skip that question. I'm going to ask you how you advertise your land. How did you find these people? Do you work with a realtor to list your
So I try
land?
to keep things off market in general, but putting it on the MLS with a realtor is, the highest and best way to sell a property. You just end up with a whole bunch of fees and et cetera, which is
Right.
fine if it means actually selling the lots.
The higher price.
If I'm wholesaling a property, especially in upstate South Carolina, I try to keep it just like within my own network of known people because it's, the same story as with houses. A buyer will not perform and things won't work out, et cetera, et cetera. So if I can sell to a known buyer, buyer, I'm happy to do that, even if maybe I make a little bit less. It's like, again, make my life easier. I'm
Right,
happy
like
to
a
sell it to
VIP
someone I know.
buyer,
Yep,
right?
exactly. So I'll start there. If they're not interested in it, then I move to Facebook Marketplace, local Facebook groups. I have a lot of success there. And then for a lot that I'm wholesaling, if no one's interested in it, then at that point I would probably just cancel it. I wouldn't try to buy it myself and list it on market because I'm not able to add value in the way that I can with a subdivide. So now we take properties where I would subdivide them. Well, that's where I buy them, I chop them up, and then I try to sell them off market. But as soon as I'm not like selling all of them, quickly, which generally doesn't happen, then I would list with an agent on market. And one little thing that I like to do is even before I close on the property, put out just like a very blanket, I guess, advertisement on Facebook Marketplace where I say like 5 acre lots for sale in X, like in this city, just to gauge people's interest and see what they're roughly willing to
Ooh,
pay
I
price per
see.
acre, and kind of do a little bit of market research. And then, if they're really interested at a price that makes sense for both of us, then hey, maybe they're my buyer. So it's kind of like a little bit of pre-marketing before I'm actually really ready to market
Really,
them.
that yeah,
Yeah.
that's also help build out a database that you're looking for, like, certain area, like, keeping but that's a very similar strategy that I've seen sometimes people doing is that if they have a house they are trying to sell for a lease option or something, they have not officially locked the house in, but they will put a very general Facebook Marketplace post and see how many people reach out to them, so that's the potential buyer. Well, cool, I learned so much from you. Well, I wanna ask how people can work with you. What's your current strategy? Are you thinking about expanding your operation or still laser focused on your market?
So I have two goals right now. The main focus is just keeping things going as they're going. If I had to drop everything else, I'm going to keep marketing and doing simple subdivide deals. I'll do wholesale deals as they come up because they inevitably come up in my marketing, but simple subdivides, focusing on that. At the same time, as I'm generating these leads, I also get opportunities on the other side, the opposite of wholesaling, but doing a big entitlement. And so I don't ever want to do, major subdivisions, bringing in those new roads, like super dense, building lots, stuff like that myself. But I'm very happy to learn about the general idea, know how to structure that deal and pass it off to a big developer. So I'm fostering those relationships and, learning what they're looking for. So I'm at least informed enough to get a property under contract for them and just pass it off to them. Maybe wedge myself into some equity, something like that. It's not a main focus, but something that I want to build up because get 2 or 3 of those where I'm 1 or 2% equity partner, like those will be pretty nice payouts on these 10, 50, $100
Yeah,
million
million, yeah.
deals that
Yeah.
will come to fruition in 5, 10 years. While it's not a main focus for today, it's like, yeah, I know enough where I can at least be making some progress here. But for me personally, outside my land business, is I actually want to get into new construction, new development, because it just seems like the next logical thing. I
That's a
acquire
natural
land. Why don't I buy land from myself and just build stuff? Building new construction fits more with my personality more than doing flips. Flips, there's a lot of like decision trees. Like I discovered this problem when I blew out the wall, or should I even blow out this wall, or should I paint the cabinets, or should I replace them? And all these decisions that I would just obsess over because it's like, well, what has the highest like return on investment, but also valuing my time. And like I would just like stress out over it. Where a new construction project, I
it's
follow
a
a
blank
plan. There
canvas.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
a
like I
blank
have a
canvas.
plan, I stick to it. There we go.
Even though there's a whole bunch of things can derail your plan, but I understand this is such a natural progression that I see from a lot of land investor, but they just kind of big boy play, right? Now I know how to acquire land. Now I pick out a skill how to work with the builder. Then I start working with the builder to build something bigger and design things from ground up. So that's a really smart strategy, and then that's a natural progression of where you're going to move on next.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my goal. Before the end of the year, I would like to begin my first new construction project. It'll take 9 months to actually complete it, but I would like to start it by this year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. I feel like I learned so much from just chatting with you. And it's so interesting to learn things that's outside of just buying houses. And there's actually people out there buying land, just flip land to do a simple, very simple subdivide to force appreciation, generate value like that. So I want to thank you again for coming to our podcast and share your knowledge with it. And how can people find you? What's the best way to reach out to you if they want to work with you, if they find any opportunity in South Carolina, close to Greenville? I look at the map, I just pull up over there. You're very close to Charlotte, you're very close to Columbia, also Atlanta. You're not too far. You're in the triangle, you're like the middle point, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a great location. And I love the Southeast, and that's why I market there. I only have so much bandwidth for marketing. So to clarify, I would do a land subdivide deal anywhere, any state. estate because I don't have to worry about landlord tenant laws. All I have to do is be able to read the zoning ordinance. And as long as the math makes sense and I'm allowed to do what I want to do, I can be in and out relatively quickly and do the deal. So I will do a land deal anywhere. I just don't have the bandwidth to market anywhere. So that's why I
I
have my
see.
little niche in the Southeast. But yeah, any land, typically 20 plus acres nationwide. Teddy Benz on Instagram at Teddy Benz. That's where I'll be the most responsive. Love to work with anyone.
Yeah, and you still answer your own DM, right?
I am, yeah. I'm not so popular or sophisticated yet that I
No,
trust the robots.
that's great. So they're gonna be reaching out to you, talking with the real Teddy Benz, not a team of VA who answering the message. That's wonderful. So thank you so much, Teddy. I wish you best of luck, and I'm sure I will see you very soon again at our next retreat. So thank you again for coming out to my podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Shinyi. Looking forward to talking again in the future.